This is Unrendered on IKTV. I am Tony Regisford and my guests are Dr. Claudius Davis and Dr. Jozelle Miller. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at iConcepts. Dr. Miller, Dr. Davis, we're into our final segment. And when we took out the last segment, we were talking about the support that people need even after the funerals. The work still continues. The interventions are still needed. The counseling is still needed, and so on. But of course, there might be a flip side to that. How much? How much do you actually crowd the people? How much presence do you need in their homes, etc.? What? Tell me about that.
There is something called social awareness and self-awareness. You have to be aware of yourself. When I say be aware of yourself, be aware of how things affect you, be aware of how you affect others, and that's how interdynamics works out.
Right.
Social awareness, you want to be able to monitor how your presence is affecting the other person.
You want to make sure you're not rotten fish, right?
Right. So you visit someone and they seem happy to see you, but you start noticing some uneasiness that, they've gone quiet, or, something has changed in terms of their reaction. Maybe that's the time that you want to take your exit.
Right.
You want to strike a balance. You don't want your goodwill to become irritated. Okay? One person said to me, "What do you say in situations like this?" And I said to them, you don't always have to speak. You go to someone's place, you can sit with them, just sit on the porch and look at the surroundings. You watch a movie together, you don't have to say a word. Just the mere fact that you're there, they know then that you're there with them, even though you're not saying anything. So don't feel that you have to always have something to say.
Yes.
And sometimes you end up speaking so much, you say the wrong things. So, if there isn't anything to say, be quiet. Just let them know that you're there.
So this question of balance, what Dr. Miller is talking about,
I agree with that
100%.
This culture is a little different from. I grew up here, but I was a little taken back with the way that people were flooding the hospital, and the patients didn't have any time to rest, and it was
Sometimes
kind of.
You wonder if that is all support, or if that's just to fulfill that curiosity.
The curiosity about that, and so I really think that these families really need time to heal. And I think we have to give them the respect. And there are concrete ways we can help. Maybe bake a cake, take it over. If they have young kids, I know you need to go to the hospital.
Constructive action we're talking about. Yes.
Can we babysit for you, or can we buy you some groceries, buy you milk, or maybe let's take some eggs for them.
Yes.
There are meaningful ways you can express your empathy and your compassion. But some of these patients, they need to rest.
Yes.
They need to recover, and they've just been flooded every time. I don't get it.
Before we go on to what is termed here the reintegration process, which is, I guess, the point of where the healing has happened. I'm sure people are not completely healed ever. Some people may never ever heal, but where you come back to some sort of normalcy. But before we get into that, have you had to use medication as part of your intervention for some people? Have you had to prescribe,
this time around?
This time around.
No, I do not. I do not believe that we had to do that.
But you had to do it in the December
floods?
floods?
But in previous times,
yes.
Persons were hysterical, and we had to try and sedate them to calm them down.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that, of course, is just a short-term measure.
Yes.
You would not want that to...
That's just to control the acute stress at the minute.
Right.
So we want to get people calm to a place that we can then start, working through some of the things that has happened.
Right. So let's look at reintegration. And it says here, in this stage of recovery, you reintegrate yourself and your values in a new way. You incorporate meaning in your life. You integrate deeper and more authentic ways of communicating. People at this stage may experience a new sense of preciousness of life, a clarification of goals, and renewed commitment to them. and a new understanding of the value of ties to others. But to get to the stage, you have to go through the first 3 stages.
Newness. That's what you...
And that's what I was citing with the couple, how you can enrich your marriage, enrich your parenting skills by making a new commitment to spend more time at home, more time with the children, especially the one who's left.
Right.
So you certainly can do a lot of that. And I think, we have to begin to infect each other with hope. We have to believe. And I think this is a time when, there's a lot happening around us.
Right.
And people are very paranoid, very overly suspicious of things. And I think this is a time when we need to come together around a common cause. And I think this event is going to pull a lot of maybe, weak families together.
Yes.
And I think we can hope, that's what we can hope that will happen. And so that we can see the kind of healing. And again, I'm appealing to the religious community and I know they're already doing that because I've heard of a lot of the congregations, the Seventh-day Adventists and a lot of the other Pentecostal groups that are really opening up their buildings, opening up their doors. And I think these families are going to need this in the months to come, not just this week, but they're going to need that. And I think it will be, we have to look to each other to do this.
Each other is what we have.
Yeah.
Now, let me turn this now to you as a counselor, as a psychologist. And how do you not carry the burden? Because you have to be professional in all of this. And you are dealing with people who are in a state of crisis, trauma. And you're a human being yourself, okay? I read recently, actually, a book called Reaching Down the Rabbit Hole, which was written by 2 neurologists. I wrote down their names, Alan Roper and Brian Brunel, okay? And there was one, these are 2 neurologists who were talking about the different clinical experiences in dealing with the brain. There was one incident in the book where one of the doctors were talking about when they were studying, they were just doing their internship or something like that, and they had to deal with these patients who were dying, okay? And it affected him so much that he had to be counseled, okay? He had to go to a psychologist. And the psychologist held out, didn't say anything, just held out a pen. Just held it out like that. And the guy said he got up and he took the pen. And the psychologist said, "Did you really need that pen?" "No, but it seemed as if it was an offer."
Right.
And the message there was that the patients who are dying, you don't have to take their burden. It's hanging out there, but you don't have to take their burden. So, I'm just thinking about you guys now. How do you deal with not taking the burden, but yet dealing with the situation?
I think for us, after every session with the patients, we have debriefing sessions. And what we do in our debriefing sessions is to discuss what are the issues that came up with the patients, as well as how did this affect you. So it's an avenue that you are able to share, how affected you are by what you're seeing, what you're hearing.
Right.
Some counselors might cry or you want to scream, because at the end of the day, we are humans.
Yes.
And we are all part of this Vincentian family. So even if, we are on the leeward end or in the, the capital or whatever the case is, and we are not familiar on a day-to-day basis with these people in fancy, at the end of the day, they have intentions that were affected. So it's going to hurt. And for myself, when I was at the hospital there on Monday and I saw the families and the tears, of course you're going to be moved.
You're going to be moved, yeah.
And I tell people all the time, it is okay to cry, let it out. From a professional standpoint, we are always told that,
you don't cry
keep your emotions behind, closed.
You don't cry in front of
But there are some times that you actually can't even help it. And it even helps the patient sometimes to identify with you more if they see that human side. That, okay, you're actually feeling what I'm going through. So it's fine. You just have to, as I said, everything goes back to balance.
Right. Right.
Just to add something about integrating what you said before.
Yes, the reintegration process.
the new reality. Persons will have to get to that place where they understand that life is never going to be the same again. And some of the things what Dr. David said, I totally agree. What we have to do now is that persons are going to have to learn to appreciate life for what it is. You're going to get to a place where you have to understand, live each day as if it's going to be your last. So you want to make sure, all this unforgiveness, things like enemies here and backbiting and all this strife, at the end of the day, it profits nothing.
Right.
So try to be the best you can be on a daily basis, as much as you can. For the students, when you have to be reintegrated into school, we have to also work along with the teachers because they're also affected. If you see a student missing from your class, and this student has died in such a tragic way, it's going to affect you. So we have all, counselors in place to assist this process when the time comes.
Well, we're running close to the end of the program, so we're now into final words, basically. But I'm going to ask one more question before I ask you to sort of sum up what you would like to say finally. The public at large, people who are viewing this program, the people who are perhaps not in direct contact with the people in the community at Fancy and Ovia, how can they help to get people to that stage of reintegration? I mean, I know, just don't put up pictures on Facebook, don't pass them around. That's an obvious one. But what about our decorum, our approach to, this moment, this period? How can we help?
Step forward.
Well, step forward. But there's a lot of concrete services. One of the things that touched me too was there was an article that was sent to me before I came that there was a Church of Christ in that area there was a photograph and they had opened their building and they had, I guess, accommodated the family. And I think that's what we need to see more of. We need to see more of a public, community-based, not something that is policed by some entity, but a volunteer kind of service where people are genuinely interested in each other. And at the end of the day, I like to say, the Bible said we ought to love one another, care for one another, believe all things, hope all things. These people need hope, but we have to model it to them because we believe in them. We believe in their cause, we believe in their suffering, and we're willing to stand with them. And that, to me, is the kind of concrete services. And like I said earlier, it might be when you go to the grocery store to buy groceries, you buy an egg, maybe, let me take a dozen eggs over here also. You buy milk, orange juice. Think of the families because these people are going through, they have to make sacrifices, take time off work to go to the hospital. It's an enormous, a lot of some folks may not have gone back to work. I may not be getting paid. I don't know this, but we need to be caring enough to make those kinds of tangible things. We as counselors, we're going to do our things, but there are concrete services that still needs to be addressed for these people.
So you were saying, you used the phrase step forward.
Right, and foster positive feelings. We don't want, persons to be doing this blame game about if, what happened, what didn't happen, and be angry with this person.
Right.
Stop all the speculations. Stop the accusing.
That helps no cause.
It goes nowhere.
If there were guardrails, this wouldn't happen. If
all these grand talks that everybody has. The bottom line is something bad has happened. It's tragic, but we have to move forward. And you have to do that in a positive way. Stop, trying to get each child or each family to relive what happened and get their own spin on things. Stop asking these questions. When they get to a place that they want to move on, don't take them back. It's about moving forward.
Well, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Davis, it was a pleasure. Dr. Miller, first time, but not the last. We're not going to get away again. Dr. Davis is in the States. You're here. We have more to chat about.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming on this
You're
edition.
welcome.
Thanks a lot. This has been another edition of Unrendered. The staff and management of IKTV, of course, are feeling the pain and the anguish like every other contention. and we extend our deepest condolences to those who are bereaved. Do join us the next time Unrendered is.